U.S. President Joe Biden says a third booster shot is crucial for ending the pandemic.
The plan is for every adult to get a booster shot 8 months after you got your second shot. Pending approval from the Food and Drug Administration, the CDC's Committee of Outside Experts will be ready to start this booster program during the week of September 20, in which time anyone vaccinated on or before January 20 will be eligible to get a booster shot.
Earlier today, top health officials with the U.S. government recommended a third booster shot for all Americans. Dr. Francis Collins is the director of the U.S. National Institutes of Health. He's in Bethesda, Maryland. Thank you very much for joining us today, Dr. Collins. I want to start by asking you, what science or evidence have you seen to support the decision to start giving booster shots to the fully vaccinated?
Well, that's the right question, Katie, and thanks for the chance to join you. Yeah, all of the docs around me at NIH, FDA, CDC have been studying this data intensively over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks. As recently as 2 or 3 weeks ago, I would have said, it looks like we're doing pretty well. The vaccines are holding up even with this really contagious Delta variant. But just in the last couple of weeks, as we've seen more of that data come out, both from the US and CDC published 3 papers today on this today, as well as other countries, especially Israel, you're starting to see some waning of the effectiveness of the vaccine. Clearly now, people who have been vaccinated are getting breakthrough infections. Fortunately, the vast majority of those are quite mild. And what we really want to prevent is that turning into people who are actually sick enough to be in the hospital. There is a hint that we might be on the path towards that, and it looks like in the course of the next month or two, that's going to become more of an issue. So instead of waiting till the last minute and seeing, oh my gosh, we've got a crisis, I think it is a wise decision to say, along about September 20th, we're going to start to offer a third dose to people who were the first in line to get their injections back in January and February, and then gradually work through that as each person reached their 8-month anniversary. Now, there's nothing magical about 8 months, but it looks like it's about the right place where that booster is going to be necessary to kick in and give you that full immunity that we all need, especially with Delta.
I was going to say, how did you get to that 8-month number? Because, you know, the vast majority of Americans have not been fully vaccinated for a total of 8 months. There are some healthcare workers and people who are at the front of the line that would be getting close to that. But what is it about the 8-month anniversary that you think is the reason why this should be happening?
Well, it's partly just projecting from where we are at 6 or 7 months and seeing that there is a trend here. You can draw the curve and see it sort of gradually waning in terms of the antibody protection. And again, I don't think we want to wait until that has waned to the point you're starting to see vaccinated people really getting in trouble. Right now, that's pretty rare, and we want to keep it rare. And we also look at other countries, and their data seems to back this up as well. Now, mind you, our FDA has to look at that data, and they have to decide they agree with a third dose, and they're going to be getting into that right away. And the CDC, with its advisory committee on immunization practices, will have to look at the data and see whether they agree. But it does look like that's quite likely. And we thought it was a good idea today, and with the president making this announcement, to basically be transparent and say, we think the time is coming about a month from now. Let's all kind of get ready for this, plan the logistics. You can't just snap your fingers and suddenly get a system like this in place. Let's start the process so that nobody be surprised. But basically, I want everybody to know that does not mean that we're in deep trouble right now or that anyone should panic. The vaccines still look extremely good for protecting people against severe illness or hospitalization. We just want to keep it that way. We want to be one step ahead of the virus, not one step behind.
Earlier this year, there had been some confusion about booster shots when Pfizer said it would seek authorization for a third dose. And at that time, when Pfizer went ahead with that, the Centers for Disease Control in the U.S. said it was unnecessary. I know that you've described a situation that has really evolved and changed, but I'm curious, are you worried that that early push by Pfizer and that was initially turned down by the CDC, could that cause some confusion, send mixed messaging, or make the hesitant remain hesitant?
Well, it's certainly unfortunate if things come out in a way that's not clear cut. And maybe that was not the best moment for the booster discussion, because it was premature at that point to say whether, in fact, these were going to be necessary. It was a possibility all the way along. I think that's why we're trying really hard today and over the next couple, 3-4 weeks to be very consistent and clear about the communication, about what is the evidence and what is it that we need to do. Sometimes it helps to have sort of a metaphor. I have in my mind that we've been racing down a racetrack with this virus chasing after us. And we were doing pretty well, but the virus acquired this Delta variant and somehow it kind of picked up speed and it's gaining on us a bit. It hasn't caught us yet, but now we need a little bit of superpower as well. That's what the booster will do. If people can kind of think about it in those terms and recognize, hey, this is a good thing. It's not too late. It's not too early. It's about right to be sure that as we're running this race, we stay ahead of that virus.
We, of course, are a Canadian broadcaster, and so I must ask about Canada because that's what our viewers really want to know about. Canada's not made any recommendations when it comes to a booster shot at this point. Do you expect Canadian authorities, health authorities, will do the same?
Well, I wouldn't want to preempt their decision making. I am sure they are looking also at the data that CDC published today, these 3 papers, as well as the data that's available, particularly from Israel, which has really a wonderfully rigorous amount of data that they've been collecting. And then the Canadian authorities will need to decide whether they agree that this is the path that needs to be taken. I'll be very interested to see. I was skeptical about this, and they may be at first as well. But I think once you kind of look at all the data in a clear-headed way and recognize what we're trying to do here is save lives, and especially when you think about the fact that the people who are the longest away from their first doses are in many ways the most vulnerable, people in nursing homes, healthcare providers, the elderly. Those are probably people we want to be particularly careful about. By setting this plan of immunizing everybody 8 months after they got their first 2 doses, we're going to be reaching out especially quickly to those people, which is going to make a lot of sense.
One thing that is a big issue here in Canada is that millions of people who are fully vaccinated received mixed doses. Some of them received a first shot of AstraZeneca and then a second shot of an mRNA dose. One thing that is really standing out to Canadians right now is the border is not reopened to non-essential travel. So Canadian tourists can't just drive across the border like they used to back in the before pandemic days. And one of the concerns is the United States might not recognize Canadians who have this mixed dosing of vaccinations to be seen as fully vaccinated. Do you anticipate these Canadians who do have the different kinds of doses to be fully, do you believe that they're going to be recognized as fully vaccinated in the United States?
I really don't know the answer. I think it will depend on what kind of data exists. And I know in England, there has been some experience with AstraZeneca followed by an mRNA vaccine. If that data looks like it generates good protection, then I would think that would be sufficient not to discriminate against people that had that particular program.
Really quickly, one last question for you. Do you anticipate people will have side effects with a 3rd dose?
We don't expect they will be different than they have been for the first and the second. Again, in Israel, where they have been giving a 3rd dose to people over 60, and they're now starting to give them to people over 50, reports I hear is it's about the same as what happened with the first and the second. Some people don't have much of anything. Some people have a bit of a fever for 24 hours or feel chilly and kind of fatigued. But no suggestion that it's really significantly better or worse. It's just like, okay, get through it and then be glad your immune system told you it was responding.
Yeah, I don't know if this says too much about me, but it's just like a hangover. Every minute that goes by, you're 1 minute closer to it being over. But anyway, that's one way to look at it. Dr. Collins, thank you very much for your time today.
Glad to be with you, Katie. Spread the good word.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.